For over 20 spectacular years, the Octagon has been the ultimate proving ground for mixed martial arts. A place where monumental battles and unforgettable finishes forge fighters into legends. Now, in celebration of the biggest event in the history of the sport, brace yourself as we count down the greatest UFC fighters of all time. This is UFC 200 Greatest Fighters of All Time. Virtually since the day the Octagon door first opened, there has been heated debate as to which fighters are worthy of being considered amongst the pound-for-pound best. And as each hard-hitting year goes by, that task becomes harder and harder. Therefore, in honor of historic UFC 200, a committee of journalists, commentators, and other experts cast their votes, compiled here in a list submitted for your consideration of 200 of the greatest UFC fighters of all time. And now that the first 190 fighters have been revealed, we bring you the top 10. Starting with number 10, the Brazilian icon who, beginning with UFC 1, proved to the world the devastating power of his family's brand of jiu-jitsu.
Royce Gracie is known as the godfather of mixed martial arts, a guy who came in as a skinny kid to the United States.
6'1" and 178 pounds, Royce Gracie!
And had to prove himself over and over again in challenge matches at his gym to prove the effectiveness of his martial art, and ended up doing that same thing in the Octagon.
Watch Royce, so I think you're going to see the clinch is extremely important in jiu-jitsu.
He just tapped out.
Just tapped out. That's amazing. It doesn't take much.
Royce Gracie made history and laid a foundation for the jiu-jitsu.
I tell you what, it is no fun being on the bottom of a jiu-jitsu ring.
Everybody in this sport, in my generation, the first person we usually saw was Royce Gracie. You know, I thought that was always so amazing seeing him as a small guy beating up these big guys.
So said he had an arm lock, he'll break his arm. He's going to snap his arm. That was quick.
Gracie Jiu-Jitsu was the greatest thing in the world. It was the newest thing in the world. There's something we had never seen. And nobody knew anything about ground fighting. Nobody was prepared for that.
Absolutely, the very first cycle in our sport was trying to figure out how the heck this little guy at 180 pounds was tapping out all these great big guys from all these other disciplines.
Nemo tapped out. What a great fight that was.
I can imagine after watching Royce win his first match, everybody is back in the locker room pissing themselves. How the great martial arts change of pace.
Royce Gracie is responsible for everything. And my favorite performance when they beat Dan Severn.
He used a submission that we had never seen at the time. It was a triangle choke. He was able to choke this gigantic wrestler with his legs and get the win.
That's it. He choked him out.
He'll say something about Royce. He'll say he's tough and he can take a beating. He's stuck in there, got the submission on Dan. Man, I didn't think that could ever happen.
What a comeback. He hung in there.
He showed the whole world the power of jiu-jitsu, you know, and he proved that jiu-jitsu was the most effective martial arts at that time.
That's it. Royce Gracie with a victory.
I don't think the world would be the same if it hadn't been for Royce Gracie and his ground game. He definitely set the tone for submissions, and Royce is just, you know, a living legend.
It's like a boa constrictor. If you move a little bit, he cinches it that little bit tighter.
He was an animal. At the time, he was a violent guy. He would do, and he really wanted to win. And plus, he's, of course, very, very good.
He's the legend. That's it. The legend.
Number 9, the first and only UFC flyweight champion, renowned for his lightning-fast striking, exceptional pound-for-pound power, and extraordinary evolution.
Demetrius Johnson, he's one of the best to ever do it, and I think he's still proving that. Pure fighting-wise, he's up here with anybody you can name in the whole sport.
He has the most complete MMA game out of any fighter I've ever seen, ever.
That little dude got some skills. He's a small guy, but he has some skills. I would have to say he's the best pound-for-pound fighter right now.
Look at that. Boom, boom, boom. Beautiful.
5'3" out there, you know, running around like a maniac and punching people, kicking people.
Sometimes he's so fast he can't be hit. It's like he's invisible.
That kid is ridiculous.
He's a miniature-sized George St. Pierre. That's the way I see Demetrious Johnson.
The reason for his success is that he has combined all of the skill sets of mixed martial arts, all of the various disciplines, and sharpened them to a razor edge.
Demetrious Johnson's technique is second to none.
Probably the most well-rounded fighter on the planet. Great everywhere.
He's a master of the game. Stand-up, clinch, wrestling. Mixes it so well together.
Brilliant display of balance and awareness. That's outstanding.
You could also say he's one of the most underrated to ever do it. And I think I have a pretty strong opinion, having been in there with him twice.
Demetrious Mighty Mouse Johnson!
He gets the first ever 125-pound belt.
In the rematch, he caught the flat-footed Benavidez clean on the jaw in the first round.
What makes him one of the best of all time is his footwork, his distance, his strategy.
And no one can really find a way to beat the guy.
I thought I could see myself doing it when I fought him the first time, and I dropped him several times. But on our rematch, he sat there and pushed the pace and made sure that I looked silly.
I look prettier than him.
He does this amazing thing where he makes fighters look silly. They look so stupid that they can't react. And he did it to everybody. Look at everybody that he's fought and finished.
Final seconds of this fight. He's spinning for the arm. Can he get it? He's got it all over. Unbelievable. All over. Johnson by submission.
Every single one of his fights, he shows some kind of evolution, some kind of improvement. That is so hard to do when you're at the top of the game. There's small improvements. So it's like you kind of stay there and people are trying to catch up to you. Demetrious got to the top and got better, you know, and he continues to get better, I think, every fight. And that's what's awesome.
Demetrious Johnson remains the flyweight champion.
We already know I hate this man with a passion, but he's the greatest champion we've ever had in the UFC. He's come in and cleaned house by making sure he's being the only champion at 125, and I don't see anyone beating him.
I am the best pound-for-pound fighter in the world, and I'll continue to keep on pulling it.
Coming up, the featherweight star who was invincible for nearly a decade. And the Hawaiian prodigy who blazed an unforgettable path in multiple divisions. This is UFC 200 Greatest Fighter. Number 8, the Brazilian destroyer who went unbeaten for nearly a decade with 9 straight featherweight title defenses.
Jose Aldo will go down as one of the true legends in this sport.
He is a dynamic Muay Thai striker with a world-class Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu ground game.
Strong, fast, explosive.
A vicious style fighter.
This is the opening he was looking for, and that is it.
Can beat you anywhere.
High level kicks, dangerous the way he fights.
Striking is very pinpoint and accurate. His defense is very hard to get past.
Wow. 10 years without losing a fight.
I think what makes him good is how ferocious he is. When he shows up for fight week, he's there for one reason. He wants to beat you, he wants to dominate you, and then he wants to get out of there.
I always found it interesting how Aldo never looked his opponents in the eyes.
You weren't quite sure if he was nervous before the fight or not.
Until that moment they say fight. And then he looks at you.
A lot of people, I think, lose the fight before it even happens because they are afraid of Jose Aldo.
He walked into fight week knowing he had already defeated you. What were you even thinking going up against him and facing him?
He shows it every time. He's always on his A game.
He was fighting against the best guys in the world.
He's beat guys like myself, guys like Frankie, EDGAR, and the list goes on and on.
He's dominated that weight class for so long. He came in and beat Mike Brown.
Hook him up.
Going into the Aldo fight, I was really confident. I had the belt. I thought I was going to crush him. But when I got in there, man, he was a beast.
And now it's Aldo attacking.
He had good power. Everything he hit you with was jarring.
In the WEC's only pay-per-view, Jose Aldo was the star of the show.
At that point, Uriah Faber was the king, not just of the 145-pound division, of the entire promotion.
Destroyed Uriah Faber's leg with some of the most brutal Muay Thai kicks I have ever seen. Oh!
Turned Uriah Faber's leg into mush.
I know better than anyone that the leg kicks he throws are like getting hit with a bat, and you know, he can take people apart and break them with those leg kicks.
Well, I've called 2 of his fights, and when he kicks a guy in the leg, it makes your teeth shake when you're cage side.
You got Frankie Edgar dropped down to 145 to fight him. Couldn't get the job done.
Frankie Edgar was the former UFC lightweight champion and one of the best fighters in the world. But Jose Aldo got through with a decision.
Super fast. He's very well-rounded. He doesn't use his ground game, but he's a black belt in jiu-jitsu. He's very capable on the ground.
His speed, his leg kicks, and having experienced that, the hardest I have ever been kicked. Jose kicked me so hard to the point where I couldn't feel the inside of my leg for 2 months.
Too skilled, too fast, and too versatile.
The most memorable finish of Jose Aldo for me was when he did a double knee against Cub Swanson. He came out right off the bat, and he hit him with a jump knee, and then switched over and hit him with another jump knee in the same movement.
And they were hyping him up, and I was like, you know what? He's got to prove it. He's got to get me down. After that, I was like, all right, well, you earned my respect.
Dominant record.
Because he's amazing. He's a great fighter.
He's a very, very tough opponent and a great champion.
Probably the best featherweight that ever graced the octagon.
He was the total package.
Everything that they threw at Jose Aldo for so long, he just knocked away.
He really established himself as one of the great Brazilian champions.
Number 7, the Hawaiian prodigy who revolutionized the sport as one of the best 155-pounders of all time.
BJ Penn is one of the greatest MMA fighters of all time, there's no doubt.
Multiple-time world champion in 2 different weight classes.
Nasty!
I've never been punched harder than BJ Penn.
BJ Penn looking to finish it quickly.
One of the best ground games in the game, if not the best.
They call him the prodigy for a reason because he just had that killer instinct, accuracy.
I thought he was just a jiu-jitsu guy, but he came out and he knocked me out, embarrassed me. To this day, I can't watch the fight.
And he's down.
BJ was a baby. He did stuff that's nobody had ever seen before. And to this day, a lot of people still can't figure it out.
Trying to work the leg. About amazing right here.
He was really one of the first guys that put everything together. You know, had great boxing, great wrestling, great jiu-jitsu, obviously.
A Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu world champion, a nasty scrapper from Hawaii. Guy is fighting everybody. He went up to heavyweight and fought Machida. He's gone down and fought Frankie Edgar at 145 pounds. He just loves to fight.
The guy has so many wars, he just throws down. I love it. That's what I love about BJ the most. He just doesn't care. He just gets in there and fights.
He always went out there and put on some of the greatest shows in the history of the UFC, and I always loved watching BJ because I just know what kind of fight's about to go on.
That's it. That's a wrap. It is all over. BJ Penn.
Diego and BJ, man, that fight was unbelievable, you know?
He's trying to finish this fight.
No question.
When he fought Matt Hughes, a lot of people thought that Matt Hughes was going to go in there and just demolish BJ.
And so I really thought I was going to win any time I wanted. And I was wrong, and BJ took my belt.
It's over. We have a new welterweight champion.
That's my worst defeat. We fought a third time. He ended up beating me, so he's got me 2-1 on the victories, and now we're good friends. If he ever needed anything, all he have to do is call.
I love watching the kid fight. He gets so pumped, so excited. You know, some of those fights come out, happen so fast.
Ran across the cage, bombarded him with punches, knocked out Uno, then jumped out of the cage and ran out of the arena.
BJ Penn, ladies and gentlemen, a man of few words.
Well, I think BJ is one of the greatest champions we've ever had, an icon of the sport.
He's had a lot of influence on a lot of fighters, myself included. You know, when I was coming up, I wanted to earn the opportunity to fight him, just out of sheer respect.
Respeito muito BJ Penn e tenho uma admiração enorme por ele.
When I woke up this morning, I thought,
I've been in this thing for 9 years. What the hell am I doing to myself? And then I realized this is my dream.
He's a spectacular fighter, a long-time champion in 2 different divisions, and is one of the guys that really defined MMA in the early 2000s.
Still to come, the iconic knockout king who lifted the UFC into the stratosphere, and the timeless power of a natural who seized gold in multiple divisions. This is UFC 200 Greatest Fighters number 6. The fan favorite who over a 13-year span became 3-time heavyweight and 2-time light heavyweight champion.
Captain America. Randy the Natural Couture.
One of the great early faces of the UFC.
One of the greatest to ever walk the canvas.
Randy Couture was a grinder. He really put the pressure and he stayed with the pressure, the same pressure for 5 rounds.
You're not going to be tougher. He's going to find a way. As that fight wears on, he's going to wear you down. And the more he wears you down, the more he gets his hands on you, the less and less technique you have, the less flash you have. He starts winning, and then he gets that gritty, bloody smile on his face when he beats you.
He fought Vitor, the Phenom, who everyone thought was unstoppable.
Vitor Belfort at the time, he was terrorizing people. And we look at Randy and he stands there with a smile on his face and we go, ooh, he's gonna get stopped. But he didn't.
Randy starts shutting his game down, outlasting Vitor, using the clinch to strike, creating the term dirty boxing, and starts wearing Vitor down, wearing Vitor down, wearing Vitor down. And eventually, the exhaustion sets in on Vitor Belfort, and sure enough, all of a sudden, a whole new star is born.
That's it! That's it! It's over! Randy Couture has taken out Vitor Belfort!
Randy just out-conditioned and out-wrestled everybody. There's no way he could keep up with Randy's conditioning.
Randy Couture!
Watching him do what he did was amazing. It's crazy to think that he had his first mixed martial arts fight at 33 and went on to have such an epic and legendary career.
His fights were great, but the fact that he was fighting and beating some like young guys, that's unbelievable.
He was definitely putting a beating on these young guys, taking them down, beating them up, pressuring them against the fence.
Position we keep seeing him in. Vitor with his back pressed up against the fence, Randy on his knees, smashing Vitor in the face.
The Chuck and Randy fights definitely helped put the UFC at where it's at now. I mean, those were huge fights.
Well, the first time we faced off, it was probably one of the most disappointing fights of my career.
For 3 rounds, he really put a pressure in Chuck Liddell.
He was able to control the ring, and he could wrestle. He could stand there and strike with him. This is really good, dirty boxing.
Smart fighter IQ. He'd go out and actually implement a plan and actually execute it.
He was the first one that really thought about, hey, we need a really game plan for each individual fighter, but not so much so that you forget who you are. Stick with your strengths, increase yourself every training camp. You become a better person every training camp, but you need these extra 2 or 3 factors to get ready for a fight, and it showed.
That guy is my hero.
Every fight, he'd come in with a different game plan. He beat a lot of really good guys, and the guy won titles in 2 different weight classes, and that's hard to do just to win 1, and he won 2.
I think he proved to everybody that age is just a number.
He was 43 when he beat Tim Sylvia.
Most memorable fight is when he came out of retirement, came back and said, hey, you know what, I'm going to go to heavyweight, and I want to be the champion again.
Welcome back, Randy Couture!
That first punch that he landed on Tim Sylvia it set the tone for the rest of the fight. Tim fell like a tree, and he beat the hell out of him the rest of the fight.
That was awesome to see a guy that you kind of think he's done, but then he comes back, you know, winning the title at heavyweight. Just an amazing guy to watch.
UFC Hall of Famer is going to become, once again, the heavyweight champion of the world. This place is deafening.
Not bad for an old man.
That's the baddest dude on the planet.
I really
liked watching him make the game work. Find out where in this fight do you have the advantage and how do you get the fight there. Fight with Gonzaga. He planned on getting Gonzaga to the ground at some point and locking down half guard. And I saw him practice that, 30, 40 days in a row.
No, I don't know if Randy anticipated the fight playing out like this. Oh, it's a takedown in the half guard.
It ended up being how he stopped Gabriel Gonzaga.
There's a lot of people in this sport I look up to, but I'd have to say if I had to pick just one, it would be Randy Couture. He always carries himself with such class, poise, and grace under fire in combat that I've never truly seen rivaled.
Number 5. An iconic knockout artist widely credited for bringing MMA into the mainstream of American sports.
I could see from day one, the first time I met Chuck, that he had it. He was going to be a superstar.
The most recognizable face in the history of the Ultimate Fighting Championship.
A guy that's so mentally strong, he can break you before you ever get in the octagon with him.
He had that mohawk, the tattoo on his side.
Chuck Liddell definitely had an intimidating look, a little bit threatening, I guess, and scary to look at.
What everybody thinks an MMA fighter looks like, you just imagine Chuck Liddell. And, he had the skill to back it up.
He was a force of nature, and I think part of it was he was just turning out the lights every time.
The Iceman, he was called that because he would put people to sleep. You would get iced when you fought Chuck Liddell. You'd be on the canvas with your face down and waking up saying, what happened?
He became synonymous with the idea of sprawl and brawl, just picking people up off of their shots and then just continuing to lay it on.
Chuck would gladly take 2 punches to deliver his one himself. He loved throwing that big punch.
When he came to fight, he was fearless, he was aggressive, he was smooth at the same time.
Making it look easy, just showing up, hitting people, and they're done.
The most memorable KO of Chuck's career was Randy 2. Sorry, Randy. I love the way he just stepped over and just shot that right hand right over Randy's left shoulder, and it was beautiful.
His biggest knockout to me was against Tito.
Oh my goodness. I have never heard a crowd like this before.
Chuck went in there, got Tito on the fence, and just unleashed on him.
Chuck continues on Tito. Combination, uppercuts.
Tito ran his mouth. Chuck didn't like it. Chuck knocked him out.
Wow.
You see the rivalry between Chuck and Tito, and those guys kind of set the bar for rivalry in mixed martial arts.
He was what a fighter should be, a guy that goes out, trains hard, goes out there and tries to knock a guy out or get knocked out.
Chuck was my first idol, and I used to model my style on Chuck, but Chuck was definitely my first MMA hero, all right, the guy I really looked up to.
He just went out there and put it all on the line for the fans, and you can tell that he truly loved the sport.
Coming up, 2 of the welterweight division's greatest kings, from a Midwestern pioneer to Canada's foremost superstar. This is UFC 200 Greatest Fight. Number 4. A 7-time defending welterweight champ with victories over 6 former or current UFC belt holders.
One of the greatest welterweights of all time, known for his brutal ground and pound, his raw power, and 6 slams.
That's the patented move of Matt Hughes.
Matt Hughes against Carlos Newton just picks him up, has him up in the air, and then slams him. Just a powerful human being, like a freaking gorilla.
pound for pound, probably one of the strongest guys to ever step in the octagon.
He had the type of strength that we had not seen in the octagon yet. He may have fought at 170 pounds, but he was as strong as a heavyweight.
Matt had a great work ethic that nobody else can equal. He's a farmer, you know, and that transforms into the fighting world.
Matt Hughes was the everyman before I tried to steal that everyman thing. You know, very blue-collar.
When you talk about his fight ability, his tenacity, and his ability to dominate people, there weren't a lot of guys that did it better than him.
It didn't matter if you had better technique than him. He was just farm boy strong and will throw you around the cage and beat you up.
His confidence in his abilities far outweighs his actual technique.
And it's all over. Matt Hughes with a submission victory.
He really wasn't that technical, but his heart and his determination and his mental ability to always stay in the fight, no matter what was happening around him.
Looking to finish.
For you to beat Matt Hughes, you basically had to put him to sleep. If there was any kind of life left in him, he's going to keep coming.
It never seemed to really get personal with him, except with Frank Trigg, which ended up being one of the great fights of all time.
Frank Trigg in a good position.
He jumped on top of him, started going after him.
Frank Trigg was this close to being the welterweight champion of the world.
Matt Hughes in survival mode here.
Hit, hurt, almost finished.
He might have to tap. Oh, Matt Hughes survives. Matt Hughes survives.
And he picks him up, carries him across the ring, and slams him.
Matt Hughes somehow reversed everything, finished him, and the crowd went crazy.
I was up fighting next, and I was going nuts in the back room. That fired me up for my fights.
Matt Hughes is a crushing style fighter, and when he gets his hands around you and he gets on top of you, he just absolutely suffocates you and manhandles you.
Most impressive thing what I saw is when he went for the armbar attack against GRACIE, and then later he stopped him. That was pretty amazing.
Can he work the arm?
He comes out there and imposes his will on people, and he did that very well for a long, long time.
Matt Hughes has defeated GRACIE.
Matt is one of the original guys of the modern era of MMA that started bringing the sport to the forefront. Matt was that plus more.
He won 9 UFC title fights.
Matt was one of the first really dominant champions who was basically the face of an entire weight class. As soon as he was done, you knew he was right in the Hall of Fame.
Number 3, the most successful welterweight in UFC history, who recorded 9 straight title defenses.
Well, if you look at the top pound-for-pound best, the #1 guy, in my opinion, is Georges St-Pierre. He was athletic. He could do anything. He was flexible. He was extremely strong. He was extremely determined. I think he trained correct.
Georges St-Pierre has to go down as one of the hardest working professional athletes in all of sports.
George trained smart and he trained hard. And when you put those two together with an athletic body, you're going to have results.
George is the hardest worker I've ever seen. He's crazy about his training and improvement and wants to be the best, and that's what made him the best fighter.
Everything he did was correct.
I almost want to call him Mr. Perfect. Everything he did looked perfect in the fight. If he got hit, the way he moved away from a hit looked perfect.
Nice Superman punch.
He's constantly playing chess there.
Gotta get those hands up, Matt Serra.
He's got another area, he's got another trick, he's got another technique he can go to beat you.
Georges St-Pierre is the welterweight champion.
He's like a renaissance man. He could do a lot of different things, a lot of different ways, and embodied that when he came in the fight.
Student of the game. From morning till night, he lived and breathed martial arts.
He was able to merge together being a traditional martial artist with wearing the gi and always bowing. And then he had that cage fighter kind of swagger to him outside of the octagon. That was always really cool.
Georges St-Pierre is a special fighter.
George's #1 skill was his timing. You know, his timing was really impeccable, not just for strikes, not just for stepping out of the way of danger, but also for timing his double leg, and also his heavy top game pressure.
Everything he did had a purpose to it. It wasn't just throwing elbows and knees and kicks. He was very relaxed, methodical.
Every opponent has tendencies and weaknesses. His tendencies are so fast, you can't capitalize on them.
Fitch got rocked after he threw the leg kick.
And he really has no weaknesses.
Fitch ducks underneath. Fitch with a knee. Head kick. And another knee.
And he makes some really good guys look stupid.
The George St. Pierre victory that stands out to me the most is when he jabbed the out of Josh Koscheck.
The jab is the most underutilized weapon in MMA.
Josh had the most devastating overhand right.
But those add up.
And for George to beat that overhand right every time with the jab.
And he's continued to punish that same area.
And jabbing to the point where his face looked like mashed potatoes.
This is easily the most jabs I've ever seen anyone land in a mixed martial arts fight. George St. Pierre, Matt Hughes.
George's biggest rival for sure would have to be Matt Hughes.
Time to settle the score.
I think I made George mad. I made some jokes about, him being from Canada.
Trying to submit Hughes.
He didn't want to win the decision. He wanted to finish.
And it's all over. And it's all over.
George St. Pierre may be the best example of development in the UFC. He became one of the best MMA wrestlers at 170 pounds.
The fights between him and BJ were just insane.
St. Pierre in full control.
His wrestling was so good. He was so strong and fierce on top that BJ, he just couldn't handle it.
Herb Dean has stopped the fight. George St. Pierre has defeated BJ Penn.
He went back and used his strength against him. And that's something that takes confidence, it takes cojones, but that's who George St. Pierre is.
He took it to a whole new level and became the face of Canadian mixed martial arts.
For George St. Pierre to have that pressure of a whole country expecting him to be champion every fight out, it was a tremendous load on him. And for him to go out there and perform like he did every single time was so impressive to me.
Just one of the most decorated fighters in MMA history. Always a class act. Just a tremendous guy. I wish he was back. I wish he came and surprised us for just one more fight.
Still to come, the UFC's youngest ever champion who went on to demolish the light heavyweight division. And the Brazilian legend who owns the greatest title reign in UFC history. This is UFC 200 Greatest Fighters of... Number 2, a Brazilian legend with the longest UFC title reign in any division and more wins by stoppage than any other fighter.
The highest level of mixed martial arts fighter the world has ever seen is Anderson Silva.
I met him long time ago since he started to fight in Japan.
Oh, he's out.
Then he went to England.
Dominance here as champion.
He got a best Muay Thai I ever seen. He's the type of fighter, he surprises you. He always brings something new.
Anderson Silva came over from Pride back in 2006, took the middleweight division by storm.
Welcome to the Octagon, Anderson Silva.
The Anderson Silva that came into the Octagon to face Chris Lieben was the best version of a mixed martial arts fighter we've seen to date. And Anderson took Chris Lieben out in devastating fashion.
It's all over. The debut of Anderson Silva lasts less than 1 minute.
The greatest fighter in the history of the sport was beginning to make his mark inside the Octagon.
Since the day I decided to join mixed martial arts, he was the guy I wanted to model my career after. He's just an amazing athlete. The way he moved his body all the time, he was just so fluid.
He did some things that we couldn't even believe, you know? We start believing after he did those things.
The most memorable fight to me was the first time he fought Rich Franklin for the title.
It was only his second fight inside the Octagon. It was a destruction.
It's all over. Anderson Silva is the new middleweight champion.
We'd never seen that done to Rich Franklin before.
He just is unbelievable when it comes to being creative, using his elbows, using his knees, all 8 limbs in Muay Thai.
Anderson brought forth a style where you're not going to hit me, you're not going to touch me, and I'm going to look like I just walked out of the hotel room after a long nap after my fight.
People see him messing around and goofing off, but that's him baiting guys in. That's him not worrying about the pressure that's coming at him.
I think he's like a little bit crazy. You have to be a little bit crazy to do that kind of stuff.
He just wait for those perfect opportunities.
Para mim, a luta memorável do Anderson Silva foi contra o Forrest Griffin. Ele fez uma performance extraordinária e conquistou grande nocaute.
So fighting Anderson Silva is like when you go out and get really drunk and you can't quite grasp what's going on and the ground's kind of moving on you and there's 2 or 3 people and you really don't know if you're in trouble or if you're going to get away with this. And you think you also might vomit at any time.
He put his hands down and just dodged punches like Forrest Griffin had no chance in there.
He's out.
So that was impressive.
I still truly believe the greatest comeback of all time was Anderson Silva, Chael Sonnen in the first fight. I've never seen anything like it.
11-fight win streak could very well be coming to an end.
He got the crap kicked out of him for 20-something minutes, and then he pulled off a triangle.
Triangle, watch out, triangle! It's a trouble! It's a trouble! He's down there! It's all over! It is all over!
Shows you what a great champion he is, and I still believe that's the greatest comeback of all time.
My favorite performance of Anderson Silva would have to be against Vitor Belfort.
Anderson Silva's just circling around. Vitor Belfort comes forward, and man, all of a sudden, a left foot came out of nowhere and out, done, over.
Anderson Silva remains the world champion! A front kick to the face! Wow!
Magic happening inside of the octagon, that's for sure.
He puts the art into mixed martial artists.
Esse para mim, o melhor lutador pelas habilidades que ele mostra.
Anderson Silva represents the most spectacular version of a martial arts fighter the world has ever seen.
Coming up, 199 have been revealed, and only one remains. This is UFC 200. Rated number 1, the youngest champion in UFC history, with an unparalleled offensive arsenal that has seen him accumulate more light heavyweight victories than any other fighter.
Jon Jones is perhaps the most spectacular athletic talent we've ever seen inside the octagon.
To me, one of my favorite guys to watch, the best guy out there, pound for pound, I would say.
Oh, man, big elbow.
Jon Jones is one of a kind in the league all by himself.
I don't know what he's got. He's got it, whatever it is.
Jon is special in every way.
Jon Jones is just a freak athlete.
His arms are about a foot longer than anyone else's.
He's just got so much natural talent.
He's all types of fighters, all at once. The elbows, the kicks, the punches, the wrestling, the jiu-jitsu.
The guy can throw elbows from like a jabbing range.
His elbows are vicious.
He'd get on top and ground and pound you, knee you in the face, elbow you from different angles.
He's young. He's tough, too. He beat a lot of big names.
He's been able to run through everybody at this point.
They kept throwing a new opponent, and I was like, all right, it's going to be a test for him, and then him just go right through him.
I was impressed with him early, actually, when he fought Bonner.
It's a fight that I didn't think Jones would win.
I saw him dominate Stephan from start to finish. Tossed him a couple of times.
Beautiful takedown. And looking at
the spinning elbow.
Roman skills like, oh, spinning back.
Nobody had ever seen that be done to Steph. Jon made it look easy.
He takes your strength and uses it against you. You think you're a good wrestler, he's gonna stop your takedowns, he's gonna take you down. And you see him do that in all of his fights.
He prides himself on out-wrestling wrestlers, on going inside and trading with inside boxers. He enjoys devastating an opponent at their strongest point.
With Shogun, I mean, he just put Shogun on his back and just beat him.
He hit Mauricio with a flying knee seconds into their fight and never looked back.
He's hurt. He's hurt, Mike. He's wobbled.
He overcame the skill and the experience of Mauricio to become the youngest fighter to achieve a championship belt inside the octagon.
Youngest champion in UFC history.
Lyoto Machida was the first guy to test John standing. He hit John with a clean karate blitz, tagging him, forcing John to retreat.
Then he took a pretty nice little punch, and then he came out the second round, completely changed his game plan, closed the distance.
Caught him with the overhand left. That dazed him.
And then finished him, choking him unconscious with a standing guillotine choke.
Changed game plans, went in, and found a place he could beat him at.
This is one of them fighters that everybody wants to be like. Dude just comes out there and he just dominates.
Basically willing to try anything, no matter how dangerous it could be, and do so in a really creative manner.
Just watching him just skyrocket through the ranks is pretty inspiring for me.
Nobody has truly outworked John Jones.
Every time that somebody says, oh, this is going to be his toughest fight, he still is able to handle business.
The toughest, most difficult, and most grueling fight of John Jones' career came against Alexander Gustafsson.
That was a huge fight in John Jones' career because he had run through this great list of champions. And now here he's fighting this 6'5" Swedish guy who is just as big as he is. Big thing he did is he came around and he had that spinning elbow and he hit him and just caught him. And I think that totally changed the momentum of the fight.
When he fought Daniel Cormier, he fought an elite athlete, an Olympic wrestler, and was able to use Daniel's craft against him.
He out-wrestled Daniel Cormier. That is unbelievable.
The fight was tough and it sucked. He kicked me a lot, he kneed me a lot. But who doesn't want to compete against the best?
Look at this. Goes the distance. Wow. Wow.
He's one unique specimen in this world. I still don't believe he's hit his full potential. I believe it's yet to be seen.
He uses his physical gifts and his distance better than anyone else has. Length, speed, power.
I truly believe that he's the greatest fighter of all time.
He could be the best ever.
John Jones, placed atop the UFC's 200 greatest fighters of all time, underscores over 2 decades of stunning and spectacular evolution. From the unforgettable trailblazers of the sport's earliest days to its current era of superstars constantly redefining what is possible in the octagon. And every time one of these extraordinary mixed martial artists enters the ultimate proving ground, let the debate as to who are the greatest of all time